For this video, we're going to be discussing graphing absolute value inequalities. So we've graphed absolute value inequalities on a number line before in one variable, but now we're going to be graphing them in two variables on a coordinate plane. So it's very similar to graphing an equation on the coordinate plane. The general form of an absolute value inequality kind of looks like this. So it's f of x. This could be greater than, or it could be less than. It could have the equal to bar. And then over here, a times the absolute value of x minus h plus k. So a, h, and k will all have numbers filled in. Now, hk is a point. The numbers for h and k form a point, and that is what we call the vertex. You can think of it as the point of the V shape. And sometimes it'll be the bottom number. Sometimes if this was flipped upside down, it would be the top number. But it's the point of your absolute value equation, and it's going to be the most important point that we need to use. All right, so if you look, I've graphed here, f of x is greater than the absolute value of x plus 2 minus 3, and you can see the vertex is at -2, -3. So let's see, some other things we need to talk about here is shading. All right, anytime you have a less than sign, you're going to be shading below your lines. Anytime you have a greater than sign, you're going to be shading above your lines. If you have an equal to bar, then the lines themselves should be solid. If you have a less than bar, or if you don't have the equal to bar, then the lines themselves should be dashed. All right, and we'll see some more practice with that here in a minute. So let's talk about some steps to graph them. So our first thing we want to do is we want to use our equation to plot the vertex. Then we can use the table function of a graphing calculator to find other points to plot. We can determine if the line should be dashed or solid, and then we draw it, and then we determine if we should shade above or below the line. So first step, all right, let's take a look at this. We want to first find our vertex. So if we look, this is x minus 4 plus 5. That tells me that my vertex is at the point 4, 5. Then I'm going to use my graphing calculator to just find some more points. And I'm not going to show you that here. I can show you in class how to use the graphing calculator. But here's some other points that would be on the line. So 3, 6, 5, 6, 2, 7, and 6, 7. Notice they form that V shape. Now I want to figure out, is this a dashed or a solid line? Because I have an equal to bar, this is going to be a solid line. And then I need to figure out where to shade. Because it's less than, I want to shade below my inequality, or below my lines. So that's how I would graph this absolute value inequality. Take a look at another example. This one is y is greater than negative x plus 2 minus 3. All right, so first off, I want to find my vertex. All right, this is a plus 2 minus 3 here. So my vertex is going to be at -2, -3. Notice inside my absolute value bar is going to be the opposite. All right, so if this is a plus 2, then the x value of the vertex is at -2. All right, I'm going to use my graphing calculator to come up with some more points. So I've got -1, -4, -3, -4, 0, -5, or -3, sorry, here's -3, -4. Here's 0, -5, and here's -4, -5. My line is going to be dashed because I don't have an equal to sign there. So I get a dashed line. And then because it's greater than, I want to shade above the line. All right, we'll do one more. So my vertex is going to be at 4, -2. Using my graphing calculator, I came up with these points. So 2, -1, 0, 0. I've got 6, -1, and 8, 0. Equal to bar tells me solid line. And because it's less than, I know I'm shading below. So this would be what my graph would look like. All right. Now we can also write an absolute value inequality from a given graph. So our first step is going to be to determine the sign. All right. If I'm shaded above, it's equal to, or it's greater than. If I'm shaded below, it's less than. And a solid line means use the equal to bar. Then I'll use the slope to fill in A. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And then you use the vertex to fill in H and K. So first step here, let's look at this one. Okay, so I've got a solid line and I'm shaded above. That tells me that this is a greater than or equal to inequality. Now I need to figure out A. So to figure out A, I need to find the slope. All right, so I notice here's another point that's on my line. I can use any point that's on the line. And I'm going over 1 and up 1, which means A is just 1. And if A is just 1, then I don't need to have anything there at all. Now I need to use my vertex, this point here, to fill in H and K. So H, this is at the point 2, 1. So H is going to be 2, and K is going to be 1. So that is my inequality. F of x is greater than or equal to x minus 2 plus 1. So I figured this out by seeing that it was shaded above and it was a solid line. I used my slope to figure out that there's a 1 out front here. And then I used my vertex to fill in these 2 points. Let's take a look at another one. All right, so once again, I'm going to go through the same process. We're shaded below. That tells me that this is less than. And this is a dashed line, so I don't need my equal to bar. So this is just a less than. I want to use my slope. So here's my vertex. Here's one other point. So that is up 1 and over 1. So A is just 1. And if it's 1, I don't need to have it there. And now I need to use my vertex to find H and K. So my vertex is this point, which is at -4. That's H. And -3, that's K. So -4 is going to go in here. And -3 is going to go in here. So that gives me a final inequality of f of x is less than, it's x minus -4, which is x plus 4 minus 3. So that's our inequality from this graph. All right, we're going to do one more example here. So if I'm looking at this one, okay, I'm shaded above my line, so that's greater than. And my line is dashed, so I don't need the equal to bar. So this is just greater than or just greater than. All right, now I need to figure out my slope. Well, here's my vertex. Here's one more point. And if I look, I'm going down 1 and over 1. So if you remember, slope is rise over run. So -1 over 1, which is just -1. So my slope is -1. A is -1. So it's going to look like this, just negative absolute value of x minus h plus k. And now I use my vertex. My vertex is right here at 2, 0. So h is 2 and k is 0. All right, so my inequality looks like this. Absolute value of negative absolute value of x minus 2, and then because k is 0, I don't have to put anything there at all. So that is how you graph an absolute value inequality and how you write an absolute value inequality from a